Hey everybody, this is the Sliders Review, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Star Trek fandom being divided. I've been wanting to talk about Star Trek and my love for old Trek and my hatred for new Trek for a very long time. It's something I've been wanting to talk about ever since I started this new channel and stuff. But I just haven't had the time. But I've been doing other stuff. So that's kind of been like distracting me. And even though this whole month I said I'll be doing like nothing but Halloween type stuff, but still reviewing type shows, like I decided to make a detour and talk about this because yesterday when I was online, I saw the trailer for Star Trek Discovery Season 4. I saw Ferengi trending and I saw Klingon trending. And so when I went to go look, of course, I knew exactly why Ferengi was trending. They redesigned the look of the Ferengi for the new Trek and everything. Some people love it, some people hate it. And some people are just asking why did they just change something that's so beloved. But then today I decided to look at why is Klingon trending. I'm thinking that they finally show what a Klingon is going to look like further in the future from that of Discovery. And no, it's actually people online talking about calling like people who hate CBS Star Trek grandpas and old people and this show's not for you no more and you bunch of crybabies and stuff like that. And I stopped and I thought to myself, okay, the people who just said that are not part of like the fandom menace. There are people who are actually against the fandom menace, but yet they're acting toxic. And I'm just like, they're doing the very same thing they complain about when they complain about the fandom menace online. So I'm just like, they're no better. And this reminds me so much of politics from the left and the right. And then I just started thinking, it's so sad because the Star Trek fandom is beyond divided. I don't think it will ever heal itself. I don't think they will ever, we will never unite because I'm part of the fandom myself. I've been a fan ever since Next Generation in the 80s. And it's just like, I don't think the fandom will ever truly unite until people come to some type of like common ground, you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, and it's kind of sad to see because even though we don't all know each other in the fandom, we know certain people of it. And no matter what, like we are part of a community of like geeky, nerdy people who love good, like space oddity type stuff, So in a way, we're kind of like a family that's never met. And this family is like pissy at each other at Thanksgiving. So in this video, I just wanted to kind of like explore where exactly did the fan base become divided? When exactly did the fandom menace kind of like grow? How are both sides of the aisle have become extremely toxic to one another and have become hypocritical and stuff? And just like my own thoughts on why I love and just hate certain Star Trek stuff. Just because a person hates like a certain aspect of the new Trek doesn't mean they're necessarily toxic, and doesn't mean they're necessarily like part of the fandom menace, and doesn't necessarily mean they are a grandpa or they can't accept change or nothing like that. People are allowed to have opinions. Sadly, in the world we live in today, people act like only their opinion matters and that's it. And those people are scum. Because you're not allowed to only have your opinion and your opinion only. Like I have my certain views on life and I feel that the other sides at times are like wrong, but then if they can make a compelling argument, I'm willing to explore what they're thinking. I'm willing to change how I'm thinking, and I have in the past about certain like social issues and stuff. And that's the way the world was supposed to be. And that's the way Star Trek was intended when Gene Roddenberry made it. Not everybody's perfect. Some people live in paradise, and some people falter from paradise, and they see other alien races that are like different from theirs and corrupt. But they all come from like the same cesspool ground and stuff, And it's like, the thing about Star Trek to me, it's always used to be like a learning experience. You're supposed to learn what not to do in order to make society flow perfectly, you know? And having only one opinion only, is not that way. So here it is. Many decades ago, a man. Um, some people consider this man a great man. Some people say like he's great, but he's flawed. However you look at him, there was a man named Gene Roddenberry, and that man had a vision. And what a vision he had. Just like Jonathan Frakes said, that man had a vision. And that vision was Star Trek. And it came out many decades ago in the 60s. A time where the world was not ready for change. And he helped bring that change along. He had women front and center on the show. He had a black woman front and center on the show. He had Jewish people front and center on the show. An Asian man. I'm sorry, I forgot what George's race is. I don't know if he's Chinese or Japanese. My bad. You know, he had a Russian dude front and center. And at that time, people did not like Russia and stuff. And, you know, he brought all these different things, and the network said, no, we want only straight white men, and that's it. And, you know, he changed some things here and there, but he still stuck to his grounds, and he did what he did. And even when things got rough for one actress on the show, you know, she was about to leave, and Martin Luther King told her, you have to stay, because, you know, all these young little black kids will finally see a black woman front and center on a white television show, and that is change. And he was right, and she stayed. And times in the world we live in started to change and everything, you know. And so, like, but for me, I didn't know none of this stuff was going on because I didn't exist. I wasn't born until like the 80s. So like my love of Star Trek came with Next Generation. And that's will always be my very, very favorite one of them all. But you know, that would have never happened if things didn't happen the way they did in TOS. And you know, and no matter, and then of course, you know, when Deep Space Nine came around, which I didn't even know that show existed until halfway into Voyager. I didn't know that show existed until like the 7th season. Like I didn't know really, I didn't even, I never knew. I never knew Deep Space Nine existed until Deep Space Nine's 7th season. I turned on the TV one day because it was like I was in high school. It was late at night on a Saturday. It was syndicated. I used to love syndicated TV back in the day. And so like I turned it on, just like, hey, there's a new Star Trek show. I'm just like, oh hey, Worf is there and O'Brien's there. I'm like, wait, hold up. Something ain't making no sense. But you know, when that show came out, people didn't like it because it was dark. But some people consider it the best Star Trek series till this day. But no matter what, no matter if a Trek show was good or bad or different, or an episode wasn't up to par back in the day, like from say TOS to Enterprise, the fandom always stayed united. And that was always great. And not only did the fandom stay united, like, even though they had their differences, they could still all unite and agree on a common base to certain things. You know, they can always say things like, Next Generation is amazing, Voyager is really good, DS9, even though it's dark, it still is Star Trek. Enterprise might not be that great, but it's an okay of a series and a whole lot better now when you look at it. Nemesis wasn't the greatest Star Trek movie, but you know, it's all right compared to some of the stuff JJ's done. And it's just like, you know, and even though like TOS was extremely outdated, it still held up no matter what because of the stories in which they told and the acting and stuff like that. Then things started to get a little divided slightly with the start of the JJ movies. People were excited for a new Star Trek series. They didn't know what was going to be Behold and everything. And then all of a sudden, they watched the movie. And many people, like myself, left the movie theater thinking to myself, what did I just watch? I'm like, is this canon? I'm just like, well, there are things about TOS that I thought I knew, but apparently I didn't. I'm like, did Kirk really become captain that fast? I'm just like, my mind was confused. And so it's like, then people, of course, found out what happened. People are still finding out what happened because the whole truth of those movies still is not fully come out. Originally, when this movie happened, people assumed that since time got altered, everything from Enterprise was the only canon show, and everything else had changed, and everything else was gonna move into the style of what the JJ movies were. Some fans didn't like it. Other fans said this is exactly how Star Trek should be. But no matter what, the fan base was still united at that time. Then, of course, when JJ got all the backlash, then he's all like, oh no, time's not altered. Even though time got altered slightly, it's now a completely different universe. So everything you knew about Star Trek in the past is still intact. He only said that to make the fans happy. That dude was getting some serious backlash. And so fans were like, okay, well, whatever. You know what I'm saying? But they were happy and everything. But then, many years later, a TV show came out on CBS. And it's a TV show that rocked everybody's mind. Not necessarily in a good way. And that show is Star Trek Discovery, the cause of the true division within the fandom menace. People were ecstatic. They're about to get a new Star Trek show with new CGI being updated in the years that's passed, and more like celebs and stuff like that. The lady from The Walking Dead was coming over, and I was thrilled because I first saw her in a show called Once Upon a Time, and she was good in that. She was the villain. And then I saw her in The Walking Dead. She was good in that too. And then people were really excited until they started seeing the set photos. And then they're kind of just like, that don't look right. What's all this? Then they started getting some of the tidbits of what the show was going to be about. And that's when the fandom menace started to go on the attack. When it was revealed that the main actress, Sonequa Martin Green, was going to be playing Michael Burnham, they automatically assumed that she would be transgender for some reason. Why? I don't know. But the biggest controversy came when people found out that she would be playing Spock's sister. And a lot of people, like myself, said, Spock ain't got no stinking sister. And so, people didn't understand why exactly were they bringing this into canon. So then when people started speculating here and there, and then people then started to remember, oh wait, he has a brother from one of the movies. But a lot of people have forgotten about that. But it exists, and it's never been brought up since. So some people consider that canon, some people don't. But with the sister, a lot of people was just kind of like, this doesn't make no sense whatsoever. So then, this is when Star Trek and even modern day TV started getting more progressive. People call this woke. Woke has been weaponized by the fandom menace, and to a degree that when people hear it, they cringe now. And it's sad. Now, the fandom menace. Now, the thing about them is I actually started watching their videos when Star Trek Discovery came on because I didn't like Star Trek Discovery. So I wanted to watch other videos that didn't like it either. But then at first, everything was going good. But then they started getting extremely toxic. And it's a lot of people is just kind of like, whoa, am I hearing what I'm hearing? Are they complaining that there's a person of color as a lead? Are they complaining that there's a woman as a lead? Are they complaining that there's LGBT people in the show? And it's just people just kind of like, well, what's going on? Because in the world, we was moving forward. And so in Star Trek, we were too. But then they just kept hammering and hammering and hammering on stuff to the point where they became a literal toxic fan base and everything. And the thing about them is that when you hear them speak in their videos, honest to God, dude, they sound like they're white supremacists who don't use slurs. Like they are on that same level and they don't realize it. And it's like, there have been other people who give hate speeches. And when they give their hate speeches, of course, they gather a crowd. And then that crowd, they help spread that level of hate. And that's what the Fandom Menace does. Now, the Fandom Menace, are they a white supremacist group? I have no idea. I have no idea if any of them are even a white supremacist or not. Some of them might just be normal people who just really, really, really hate Star Trek. And other ones are probably are. And other ones are probably hidden. Yeah, you know who you are. And then, so, like, they know they cater to other toxic people. They know, because most of their audience that like watches them and agrees with them and says the stuff they say are very toxic men and everything. And some of them are white supremacists, the fan base of the Fandom Menace, and that's who they cater to. They might not always know that, but that's who they are. And they can't be that dumb not to know that. I mean, they watch the news and they watch what goes on and stuff like that. And so, like, because, like, because, like, when it comes, I take Sonequa Martin Green. I don't care that people hate Michael Burnham. I don't like Michael Burnham either. Now, I'm a black man. And, and it's just like, so if you hate on her, hate on her. I don't care. Her character sucks. But here's the thing. As I started watching videos, more and more people talking about Michael Burnham, they started giving her nicknames. And then next thing you know, then they started attacking the actress. And I'm just like, what does the actress have to do with this? She's just playing a role. But then now they're starting to attack the actual actress. They're attacking her gender. They're attacking her race. They're giving Michael Burnham all kind of disgusting nicknames. And like, because they say that she's the worst character in Star Trek history. Now, if you look in Star Trek history, there have been other terrible characters. Look at Tilly. I like the actress who plays Tilly. But I can't stand Tilly. Tilly is literally the worst Star Trek character I've ever met, who is rising to the top when she's nothing more but like a cadet / ensign type person. But she's not even mentally capable of running a ship, but yet she was the acting commander at one point. And so one would think people would attack Tilly and everything, but for the most part, people don't when it comes to the Fandom Menace. And some people do, but not really. And when people do attack her, it's mostly for her weight, which that's just messed up. And so when they do not attack Tilly, people started to be like, okay, well, the only reason why you're attacking Sonequa is because of her race. And most of those people are. Because when you bring her race up in conversation that has nothing to do with the actual character, then we know exactly the type of person that you are. And so as a result of that, now you have the anti-Fandom Menace. And for the anti-Fandom Menace, to shorten them, I'm just going to call them tree huggers, which is a term for tree-hugging hippie. Why? Because back in the 70s, a decade I was not a part of, the hippie era started to come. And hippies were all against people who was against like war and violence and all this other stuff. And people nicknamed them tree huggers because they used to hug trees. Well, that's what people thought, you know what I'm saying? And plus, I like South Park and Cartman. He used to call them tree-hugging hippies, so why not? And if you take offense to that, well, I'm sorry. I can't think of another term right now. And tree-hugging hippie is really the only thing I can. People who are very progressive and stuff. Now, the Fandom Menace, I truly believe it all started. Some people think it started with the female Ghostbusters. I think it went further than that. See, a year prior, before that movie came out, what was it? The new Star Wars movie came out. And guess who helmed that? JJ. He messed that up too. He left Trek and went on to Star Wars. And so, anyway, the first trailer for The Force Awakens came out. And behold, we saw a stormtrooper take off his helmet and there was a black man. And the Fandom Menace lost their stinking minds. Why? Because can't no black person be no stormtrooper for them. Because the original stormtrooper, I guess people back in the 70s were like mostly like white actors. Because, it was the 70s. So they hung on that. But if they watch the new trilogy, that George Lucas came up with in the 2000s, then you would know that the stormtroopers, they went from being white to that of a New Zealand man, a man who is, I think he's Maori. I'm not sure. He might be Maori, Pacific Islander. The dude who plays the new Boba Fett, and like the newer Star Trek, not Star Trek, Star Wars stuff. He is not white. They didn't care. They did not care that that changed over to him. They did care that who the real Boba Fett was, and that he was like this clone thingy and stuff like that. But I'm not even gonna get into that because that's just too complicated. And so, like, they was upset about that, but they wasn't upset about the race actually changing. Because back then, they didn't care about race. Back then, there was an animated movie, a Batman animated movie, where they had 3 different Batwomen. One was white, one was Latino, one was black, and nobody cared. Now, you have the CW Batwoman show. They hated Ruby Rose, and she's gone. And then they brought in a black woman, and they lost their minds. And so, that was the starting point of the fandom menace. That whole trailer, and they couldn't get over a black stormtrooper. But then things got worse with the female Ghostbuster reboot, and they hated the movie before the movie even came out. And that makes no sense. How can you hate something that hasn't even literally came out? And it was actual real white supremacist hate groups that was attacking some of the stars, especially Leslie Johnson and stuff. And so then that when the fan base just started to grow into this extremely toxic white supremacist sounding type of group. And in all honesty, that female reboot Ghostbusters, God, that movie sucked. I defended it, and I felt bad for defending it. I defended it before I watched it, and I felt bad because the people was getting hated on. But then I actually watched the movie. I'm like, okay, this is why you're getting hated on. But they got hated on even before the movie came out, so nobody knew it was gonna be good or not. And so now that is the whole purpose of the fandom menace. Before anything comes out, when it's announced that there's gonna be a female lead, a person of color lead, an LGBT lead, or an LGBT character, or this and that, or a interracial marriage couple, whatever, biracial kids, anything that doesn't have to do with the straight white man. Now they gang up online and they just go on the attack, and they're vicious about it. And people have seen this. So people have gotten irritated by this and everything. Now we're coming into the tree huggers. The tree huggers, I truly believe they're a mixture of real Star Trek fans, new Star Trek fans with the JJ stuff, and people who have never seen Star Trek, but they defend anything that has to go against their political views, agendas of progressive nature. So people who just have no idea what they're talking about, but they're going to defend it just for the sake of defending it. And this is where the huge problem now lies. Because after Star Trek, actually no, I'm not even going to talk about Star. I'll do my Star Trek of why I hate and why I love it, maybe in another video. I don't got time. I'm talking too much now. Anyway, so once Star Trek Picard came out, everybody loves Jean-Luc Picard. And so, like, we was excited for that. Then we watched the actual show. And we're just like, what the world do we watch? This is not necessarily all that great. Picard acted like just a former shell of himself. And then they killed him off at the end and put him in some type of android like body type thing. They changed certain characters around. Like, okay, I've stated before, I don't care if a show goes like woke or whatever, but I don't like check mark systems. And if you check it off, then that's not real representation. That's just doing it for whatever purpose serves, like what's ever going on and stuff. And that's what happened with 7 and 9 and Raffi. Those two are now in a relationship. Where did that come from? They never even spoke on the show. They was never even in the room for too long. And then at the very end, they just holding hands. And it's just like, where the world did that come from? Because like, they made 7 and 9 bisexual in the new Star Trek series, where she was straight in the past. And so they made her bisexual for this one. Who cares? But Then they gave her a relationship with a woman who she doesn't even talk to on the show. So it was just kind of like, where in the world did that come from? It was a check mark system and stuff. And so, like, the check mark system is causing the fandom menace to go even more nuts in the head, because it even causes me to go a little nuts in the head. I'm not even part of the fandom menace. It's because if I want to see real representation, I don't want to see a check mark system. Because when they do the check mark system, they don't do nothing with those characters. They just bring them in just for the sake of looking at them and say, haha, look at us, we're progressive and everything. And then they move on. And so, like, because of the check mark system, now this is causing most, like, people who not even part of the fandom menace to, like, go insane in the head. And so the fandom is just, like, going even more, like, divisive and stuff. And so the tree huggers now have decided that they're going to defend new Star Trek, no matter how stupid it is. And it is stupid. And so, like, they're going to defend it with every last breath they have. And that's what I've been seeing online a lot lately. I am constantly seeing people, and the people who are the tree huggers, they are the ones who complain about the fandom menace and talk about how toxic they are, talk about how terrible they are, and talk about how much bullies they are and stuff. And so I've seen so many people that are the tree huggers, they are the ones that are, like, now attacking anybody online who complains about new Star Trek. Even if it's just a little tidbit. Like, say somebody say they don't like the new design of the Ferengi. I don't blame them. It's totally different. He looks like the Magus dude and everything. And that dude was the only one who ever looked like that. But now they're making it to where more Ferengi are starting to look like him. And so that's what got trending online. And I literally read comments talking about, oh, you know, these are just a bunch of old grandparent people who can't, like, accept, like, change and, like, everything like that. It's not that people can't accept change. It's just when something's been integrated in history for decades, they have watched over 1,000,000 times. It is literally stuck, imprinted on their brain. You know, that is what they are used to. And so when they see a drastic alteration, like in the Klingons and everything, it's just like, it blows your mind. Because you ask yourself, what the world is this? Why? What was it necessary? Why was it necessary to change their design? That is the true question right there. Why was it necessary? It wasn't necessary. It's been that way for decades and stuff like that. And they changed it just so they can have their own style, their own spin. And they have that right because it's the show they're making. But they had no business doing it, if that makes sense, you know? Because if they wanted to do their own thing, create their own show, and do whatever they want. And then the thing is, I know what you're gonna say. Oh, well, the Klingons already changed. You know, from TOS they look like this way, and in the movies, and then in Next Generation, everything else they look that way. Well, there is a reason for that. And if you are a Star Trek fan, which I believe most of the people are not, if you are a Star Trek fan, then you know that it was a budget reason, and that was the only reason. They did not have a huge budget in the 1960s. They was not great with makeup at that time. As 2 decades passed, they improved the look. And not only that, but they were smart enough after fans complained and asked the question, doing like all like the Next Generation and Voyager and DS9, they decided, hey, we're gonna retcon this. So that now it fits lore, now that it fits canon. And so they did. And they did it beautifully in Star Trek Enterprise. And the mystery of canon universe-wise was solved. But then comes Star Trek Discovery. And they decided, hey, we're going to change this around. And fans lost their minds. And fans hated it. And rightfully so. There was too much prosthetic makeup on the new Klingon faces. And now there are multiple colors. They're beige, they're dark blue, they're purplish colors, they're black, they're white. They're different colors now. You know what I'm saying? And that makes no sense because we've never seen that before. And so, and then when fans complained about it and hated it so much, they decided, okay, in season 2, we're going to change this. We're going to try and make y'all happy. So they simplified the makeup. It still looks terrible, but it was an improvement slightly. But then they had the nerve to try to retcon that and say that, oh, the reason why Klingons shave their head is because when they go to war and blah, 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 blah. And that was it. And now they grow their hair back out. Well, we've seen Klingons at war before in other Star Trek stuff, and their head was full of hair. So it was a stupid retcon from like a person who does not understand Star Trek. These people right here do not understand Star Trek. I truly doubt in my head if they ever truly watched a real Star Trek show. And then when they get references to stuff, they look at pictures and they probably watch videos and they're like, oh, well, that must be canon, this and that. So we're going to do that. And then it's just like, then they end up screwing it up. And then, you know, and it's not just change. Because, like, okay, here's my thing. The uniforms in Discovery, I like the uniforms. I don't got a problem with uniforms. Only problem I got, if you're going to say this is a couple of years before the whole Kirk era, these uniforms need to kind of match up. You know what I'm saying? You can't have something off the wall and then expect that to be canon and then start throwing in all these new uniforms. Same thing with the technology. I like the way the technology looked, the consoles, stuff like that. But any real Star Trek fan knows that holographic technology just wasn't really and truly a thing back in old Trek because they did not have the budget. Occasionally, you will see the holograms pop up. We saw them pop up in Next Generation for like 2 episodes. That was it. We saw them pop up in DS9 on the Defiant, and that was about it. Because they just didn't have the technology to do that. But now, apparently, back all the way in before the Kirk era, they had holographic technology and extremely advanced technology. And people were just kind of like, this doesn't make sense. Like, this is not what it's supposed to look like. Now, I was not expecting consoles to look the way they did in TOS. That's too outdated. I'm okay with the upgrade, like the Borg, you know what I'm saying? They upgraded the Borg for like the movies in Voyager from Next Generation. That was great. But then that can easily be said, but you know, the Borg are always updating their technology anyway. So they could easily just say that, you know what I'm saying? But when you have all this high-tech technology that's more high-tech than that of the 29th century in Voyager episode, something needs to be said. And that's what fans did. Same thing with the spore drive. That should not exist. In any old Star Trek show, it's never been established. And if they would have established that for a newer Star Trek show set after Nemesis, that totally would have been fine. Voyager was all the way in the Delta Quadrant. They encountered many species with different warp travel. They could have built something from that. That would have been easy. And fans would have been excited for that. But no, they did this back before the Kirk era. And then there was the Klingon War nobody's never heard of. And then the way the writers handled that was sloppy. And this is why I have a problem with that. They just said it's classified. Every new change they made that pissed off the fans, they just said was classified. That is not smart writing. That is bad writing. That is lazy writing. That is, we're in trouble, so we gotta find a way to fix this and everything. And you can't just fix everything by saying classified, classified, classified. Even in the CBS universe that they have created, they are still screwing up. They had those short treks that showed that the ship of Discovery is now deserted and far, far into the future, in a nebula or something like that. Now, you know, this doesn't make no sense because now in the 3rd season of Discovery, they are far into the 31st or 32nd century. And there's been no mention of the ship ever like being lost and this and that and the crew being abandoned and the AI taking over. So that is completely like just non-existent no more, you know? And then so like another problem a lot of people have with the newer Star Trek stuff is that it's too dark. I'm not just talking about like the mood. I'm talking about like the lighting. It's dark on the ship. And so the whole reason for that was because Lurker was from like the mirror universe. So, okay, once he's gone, it should be brightened up. No, it's still dark on the ship. And it's like, then there's the lens flares from the JJ stuff. There's a new actual warp travel. They change every little thing they can change about Star Trek, down to the consoles, the uniforms, the warp travel, like design, like how's it go, the windows and stuff that's on like the bridge, and then how the shuttle bay doors are always open. Why are they open for? Why? And like then they started like throwing in all this action, which I do like action, but they don't need that much action. And it's like everybody, and then not only that, but when the first season Discovery happened, everybody was so moody. Nobody acted like they was from Earth. Everybody acted like they was from the mirror universe. Everybody was grumpy, or they were really silly, or like they cried a lot. Like Tilly and Mike, like Tilly cries a lot. Tilly cries, Tilly cries, Tilly cries. And then Michael Burnham, she cries too. And then Saru, who's everybody's favorite. Even in the first episode, people didn't like him because he was mean and grumpy. Stamos. That dude was so rude in season 1. They had to change him around completely in season 2 and slowly change him. Then there's like the whole Tilly rise in command. She started off as a cadet in season 1. She became an ensign at the end of season 1. Season 2, she's still an ensign, and then by season 3, she's acting commander, and there are other lieutenants and lieutenant commanders on the ship. And speaking of ranks, what is everybody's rank? We don't know, because their ranking system is on their comm badge. So you have to go really close to whatever device you're watching, zoom in, and then look and see what rank people are. Oh, speaking of people, another problem people have with Star Trek is the crew. The show only focuses on one person, and that is it. Now, other people, like say Saru and Stamos and Tilly and then the Doctor, they do stuff and they say stuff, but it's always Michael Burnham who has to save the day. Star Trek is not about one person doing everything. It's about the crew of a starship that's supposed to act as a unit and help save the day in whatever they do. But for some reason, in these Star Trek shows, they just have one person doing everything. And when they have the other people help her out, they barely say anything. I still, to this day, don't know the actual senior bridge crew of Star Trek Discovery. I don't. I really don't. And I'm not going to look it up online, because if the show is not going to tell me in every stinking episode, why should I bother? None of these people gets a story arc. None of these people get character development. None of these people get an actual episode to themselves. And when they do finally get to say something, it's something stupid like say yes, like the whole Tilly thing. They wanted her to be like the commander. And everybody, one by one, said, say yes, say yes. That was so lame and stupid. Or when they went to Earth and they're all like, oh, this tree, I remember this tree. I used to sit by it in Starfleet Academy and stuff. That's what they get to say. That's what the senior bridge crew gets to do. They don't do nothing else. And just like with the Helms lady, she started acting weird in season 3. Almost like she was being controlled by, well, control. But then there was no follow-up to that. They just completely left it alone. And when it does come to the savior of Star Trek, Michael Burnham, when she started off, she was a mutineer. Like, she committed mutiny and everything. She's always being subordinate and everything. She's always going against what her higher commander person is saying. She's always doing everything on her own. She's always screwing up And then she's always the one who saves the day. Even in the new season, season 3, she, even though, okay, like, this is so weird. Okay, like, okay, I forgot this alien race. They had these tubes on the side of their cheeks. And so it was a woman, and she's barely shown on the show. I doubt she'll ever come back. So they had to find like a ship with her alien race because they had like a plants on there and stuff like that, and they need the plants to save somebody. So they send her, the doctor, and Michael. So this woman, she encounters one of her crew people, well, not her crew people, but one of her species. And so you would assume that she'll be the one to bond with this person and talk to this person and, like, get this person to do right. No, it's Michael Burnham. And even the doctor say, Michael, only you can do it. He literally says that twice in the season 3. Michael, only you can do it. And blah, 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 blah. And it's like, no, not only Michael can do it, other people need to do it too. You'd think that lady from her own species would be able to connect with her own species, but she wasn't. But then she ends up leaving the ship to go be with her species. And I'm just like, that don't make no sense. And see, this is my problem with Star Trek. I miss the good old days when it used to be a whole team of people doing stuff. I miss episodic episodes. But however, when it comes to episodic episodes, I'm okay with story arcs. Like I am. You know what I'm saying? Because that's just how TV shows are nowadays. But if you're going to have a story arc, make sure it's a good story arc. And they're using so many old tropes in Star Trek and they're running with it. Like the mirror universe, they're overdoing that. Even Deep Space Nine kind of overdid it a bit. But at least theirs were interesting. And speaking of Deep Space Nine, I'm not opposed to dark Star Trek. It's like Deep Space Nine was probably the darkest at that time. And it still felt like Star Trek. They still let the crew do other stuff. The captain wasn't just the only person who gets to do everything, And that's what CBS has lost sight of. They really have lost sight of what Star Trek is supposed to be. The show, like, Earth doesn't feel like a utopia no more. It feels like a dystopia. And now the Federation is not even, Starfleet and all them, not even part of Earth no more in the further future and stuff. That would have been a really interesting and compelling thing to do. Why did the Federation break away from, like, Earth and all this other stuff? And, how they gonna get them back together? But then they did it in the dumbest way possible. A little kid who got irradiated screamed. And it knocked out warp drive for a lot of, like, ships and made them blow up. I mean, that's kind of interesting. But I'm just like, it would have been easy to just do the whole Omega particle thing, you know what I'm saying? At least that was established in Star Trek. And of course, who saved the day once again? Michael Burnham. And it's just, Star Trek doesn't feel like Star Trek no more. It really doesn't. And it doesn't make things better when, like, people are constantly fighting with one another in the fandom. Because when I said both sides are toxic, because it's like, okay, I never did finish that statement I was making. I kind of went off topic, so I kind of just ranted. But, like, the tree huggers, they don't like the Phantom Menace because the Phantom Menace just goes on the attack. And I understand that. Like, I get that, you know what I'm saying? But then when they go online and they automatically starts running off the mouth talking about Q, the, like, crybaby who's like a grandpa who misses the old Trek because they can't accept change, then you are being the bully and everything. And you don't even recognize it. But you know better because you're a hypocrite. And that's what you are right there. You're two-faced and everything. And see, you are another faction of the Phantom Menace. You're just not the one that you hate and everything. It's kind of like politics in a way. Like, the world is divided because of one man. The United States is divided because of one man. And it's just like Democrats and Republicans hate each other. They don't want to come to a common ground on anything. White people are angry with, like, every race and gender there is right now. And it's just like everybody's divided and stuff. There are Karens. There are, like, toxic people. There are people who won't take vaccinations. It's like everything is divided. And when I read these comments online, like, say it's a Democrat type person and it's cancel culture, right? and that person doesn't like a person on the right side, like a Republican, because this Republican said or did something that upset them that's toxic. So they want that person's canceled, right? But then when that very own Democrat like celebrity that they like do the same exact thing, they just turn their head and don't even pay attention to it. And it's like, no, that's a hypocritical thing. It's the same thing with the Republicans on the right. They know what their party's like. And when people on the left do things they don't like, they complain. But then when people on the right do stuff, they turn their heads and don't say nothing. And that's hypocritical. And this is what the Star Trek fandom is about. Like, the fandom is the toxic fan base has went too far in their attacks that they seem like just an extreme hate group. So now it's caused the people on the other side to go on the attack, but now they're attacking for no exact reason, just for the sake of attacking those who do not like what they like. And another thing about the fandom menace, if I have to say anything good about them, which is very rare, it's like, no matter, when I used to watch their videos, I would read the comment sections. I would read the comment sections on like Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And you know what I've noticed about them people on YouTube? I'll give them one credit for something. I never see them attack other Star Trek fans. They will attack the stars and the production staff and the networks, but I never see them openly attack a fan unless one of the fans points something out or attacks them. Then they will attack back in defense. However, there is one in particular. You can point out all the stuff she says, and it can be factual. Like, say she's really toxic, or she's really toxic. And the person will point out, because I read this stuff, and it was an interesting read. She went on the attack about something. I don't know what it is. I don't know. She's just out there. And so I guess somebody who didn't agree with her, they pointed out the stuff she said and said, like, you know, what you're saying is like harmful and this and that, and it doesn't make no sense, and you sound like a hateful person. That person who commented on her was right. She did not take too kindly to that. She went into like an hysterical rage, started cussing, started fussing, and everything else. And then the other person started commenting back, but the other person wasn't like, well, the tree hugger person, they wasn't arguing with her. They were just pointing out fact. But this one person just couldn't have. She was just in like an extreme like rage. Then all of a sudden the conversation stopped, and I'm just like, where'd they go? And then the tree hugger person said that they blocked her after. So it's like she couldn't even handle criticism, yet she's always criticizing something else. And it's like, that's not how a healthy debate works. You know what I'm saying? You can't say something that's extremely hateful, then when somebody comments on that, you get upset and cuss that person out, and then before that person can even reply to you, you block them. Like, what is that about? So if you can't even handle it, don't even say it or something like that, you know? And the tree hugger person was right. This person was literally going on the attack for just absolutely no reason and stuff. And, you know, it's sad to see the fandom like constantly going back at each other's like throats online, because it's like, it shouldn't be that way. Like, Star Trek fans used to be so united as one, you know what I'm saying? And now even some of the people who hate CBS Star Trek, they're starting to come around now and starting to like Star Trek, CBS stuff. Why? I have no idea. But they are. And I guess they're starting to actually enjoy it. Or maybe they're not enjoying it. They just see how toxic the fan base is, and they trying to give support to it, you know? Because like, if the toxic people keep going the way that they do, then people are gonna think this is garbage, and then it's probably gonna get canceled, and people would rather have bad Star Trek than no Star Trek, you know? And so it's just like, you know, and it's just so weird to see an entire family of people just arguing with one another. And it's just because they, even when Star Trek wasn't even all that great in some episodes, people still stay united. But now, because of CBS Trek, it's just like boom and stuff, you know? And another thing is like the tree huggers, they don't understand why the fandom menace gets upset when politics are brought up in the Star Trek. And because that's true, the fandom menace gets upset when politics is brought up in Star Trek. But if they were true Star Trek fans, they would know politics have been brought up since TOS. So why are they complaining? They complain for the sake of complaining. That's just it. And they do it for likes and views and YouTube money. And it's sad. So it's like y'all are causing all this mass like hatred for money and stuff and views and clicks and stuff like that. And so I wonder if the Star Trek fandom can ever reunite, can ever go back to merge as one, or is it just gonna be divided between like the fandom menace and like the tree huggers and stuff, you know? And it's not even fun to enjoy Star Trek no more. Like it's really not. Like you can't even have an opinion online and want to complain about something just not looking right or feeling right. Or even let's say you watch an episode of one of the newer Treks and you just all like, oh, I just didn't enjoy that episode. You didn't say why you didn't enjoy it. You just said you didn't enjoy it. And then here comes some tree huggers all like, oh, here comes Grandpa. Cue the violin music and then stuff like that. And it's just like it's not necessary. It is not necessary to do that. And if you are a tree hugger and you go on the attack before anybody even says anything to you, like you just start attacking, talking about like, oh, here comes Grandpa. Cue the violin music, this and that. You are a scum. Plain and simple of that, because you're literally trying to irk somebody and piss somebody off just for the sake of argument. And if you're a part of the fandom menace who are like just attacking people for the sake of attacking for licks, not licks, for likes, clicks, I got those two words mixed up. Clicks and views and money and all that, then you are beyond scum. You're like beyond what scum is and everything. And it's just like people need to stop. You need to stop. If you're gonna have criticism, make sure it's at least valid. I mean, I don't care if you hate the way a certain alien looks. Like new Star Trek, they keep bringing in these big-headed aliens. I have no idea why. It's so dumb. And they're doing it, and the creators are doing it as if they had their own spin on something. But it makes no sense. Aliens don't even look like aliens no more. They used to look more humanoid. Now they just look like aliens from Star Wars and stuff. But if you got criticism about that, fine. But just make sure it's valid. Don't sound all like a white supremacist just because you feel like you're getting erased from society and everything. You're causing yourself to be erased from society because of how much you complain. And, you know, and if you do see somebody complain, talking about they hate this Star Trek and this and that, calm your behind down and don't go on the extreme attack, tree huggers. Like, you know, just relax and everything and try to see why they're upset. Because some of those people in the fandom menace, like when you actually hear what they say, they literally say that the Star Trek that they know and love just doesn't feel the same no more. Everything's different. Like, you know, it feels like their show doesn't even matter no more. And I've heard somebody say that one time, who said that she loved Star Trek back in the day. It made her happy. And now everything looks different and feel different. And it's like the writers don't care about the fans. And, you know, and the fans are the ones keeping it alive and stuff. And it's just like people need to hear people out. You know what I'm saying? Things have gotten so bad in the Star Trek fandom that now even the celebrities and the executive producers are getting in on the toxicity and stuff. Like I read somewhere a long time ago that William Shatner and Jason Isaacs, they got into it. I read that Jason Isaac got into it with a fan one time. I read that Michael Chabon got into it with a fan one time. I have no idea what was said, but like they got into like an argument online about the product that they're making and stuff. And in the past, the Star Trek Discovery crew, the cast, they understood that this was going to be different from what people knew and loved. And, you know, sometimes when people will complain online, they will end up liking the comments because they understood. But now they're in their fourth season, making tons of money, got a huge fan base. So now they're like heavily defending the show because they don't want it to get canceled. I don't want it to get canceled either. I just want it to get better. Alrighty, well, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.